question.
Cool.
So I'm here with Graham Allcott, author of How to Be a Productivity Ninja for Productive Magazine, the second issue in the Netherlands. Hi, Graham.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Good to speak with you about your new book, Knowledge Ninja. Can you tell us a little bit how you came to write that book?
Yeah, so this is Knowledge Ninja.
Cool.
Knowledge Ninja is making its way in the world right now. It's just launched in the UK just last week. It's the book that I've been asked the most by other people to write. So people who've read Productivity Ninja. A lot of people who read Productivity Ninja have, teenage kids, and they say to me, we've done Think Productive's workshops, we've read Productivity Ninja, but how do I get my kids to do this stuff?
Yeah.
So it's been just a very common theme. It's also the book that I really needed when I was at school. So I was not a disciplined study person at all. Self-organized study and me were not happy bedfellows whatsoever. So for me, it was the book that I was like, I wish I'd have had this kind of book when I was at school. I learnt productivity, as many people know, and I talk about in Productivity Ninja, off the back of going freelance and realizing that I needed better skills myself in order to actually complete and finish things. And that came to me in my late 20s, early 30s, really. So realizing that I needed this book when I was at school, it was like, okay, well, what else is out there? What I found was there were quite a few books on particular aspects of study skills, like writing or memory or how to revise and things like that. But again, just like what I found with productivity, they're all written from this kind of viewpoint of how do we be perfect around this stuff? And I just think that for me doesn't resonate. I think it's more important to tackle these things from a more human, realistic kind of perspective. And hence, Knowledge Ninja is here. That's the whole premise of the book.
Yeah, and you're really open in the book, at first, especially in the start of the book, about your own failures and your own scorecards.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so it starts with some choice quotes from old school reports that I got my mum to get down from her loft. My favorite one is the progress that Graham has made has been pulled out of him, and most credit for it goes to others and not himself. He sees this as a little local difficulty, but his attitude to organized study is in fact a major future problem. So I just like this whole sort of prophetic, this is going to screw up in the world.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple of the teachers that wrote some of those reports, I'm friends with on Facebook now. And I sort of put a little dedication to some of them in the back of the book, but also have given them the reference to the book on Facebook and stuff, and they've been really excited by it. So it's been quite a nice and strange journey back in time for me.
Yeah, what really struck a chord with me when reading the book, just as I with Productivity Ninja, is that it's not about being perfect, and that's really important for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my take on a lot of the other productivity material that's out there in the world is it's very much preached from a guru perspective on high. It's like, I'm perfect. If you'd only be a little bit more like me, then things would be great, kind of thing. And I think that can be quite alienating. I think something that has really struck a chord with Productivity Ninja, if I think about the feedback I've had and the emails that I get and stuff, it's just this whole notion of let's just start from agreeing that we'll screw up sometimes, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And I think with this book, I think that's particularly relevant to students these days, where if you think about the attention challenges that a student has now compared to the attention challenges I would have had 15 years ago, and you would have had way back in ancient history for it. But if you think about those challenges, it's 24-hour rolling news, it's 24-hour rolling notifications, it's email, it's all of that stuff. And I think just realizing that is setting people up to fail more and more. I think so much of this technology is new, relatively speaking, that we still haven't grasped how to interface between the technology and our attention. And I think probably in 20 years, there won't be these challenges because we'll have worked out other technology that helps help make it easier for us. But right now, there's the potential for distraction is so huge that I just thought that was an important thing to get across to people.
Yeah. So when writing the book, what kind of people did you have in mind primarily? Students?
Yeah, I mean, Students, I guess, in the broadest sense. So in the UK, students who might be doing, GCSE exams, so the kind of 16, 17, and then A-level, kind of 16, 17, 18 kind of age group, and then degree students, 18 to whatever, 80, I suppose. But then also, people who are working and trying to juggle their work with doing a French class on a Tuesday evening or doing some distance learning. And the sort of final chapter is really about saying we never stop learning. We should never stop learning. So the whole final chapter is curiosity and childishness. And for me, that's a kind of lifetime mantra, not something that you should only have while you're studying. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just aware that there will be quite a broad audience to it. I think certainly if you're doing any kind of structured study, then I'm hoping this is the productivity book for you to get. I mean, it's where those two things meet. But I think people who, the audience for Productivity Ninja, I think will get this too. I think there's some nice productivity aspects to the book that I think I have expressed better and sort of more concisely than I did in Productivity Ninja. So I'm hoping fans of the first book will really love this book too, just, as a productivity book.
Yeah, and one thing that we should keep in mind is that most of the people that I here talk about productivity are knowledge workers, and one of the aspects of a knowledge worker is to condense information, get new information.
Absolutely.
So there are two new characteristics in the book. Can you talk a little bit about those two and how they could apply to a busy working person somewhere in the world?
Yeah, sure. So the first new one is Ninja Balance. This is Ninja Balance right here. So I wanted to write, I mean, I think particularly for students, but I think, again, this is where the crossover comes with productivity. Part of the idea of these books striving for perfection is that they assume that you don't have a life outside of your work or your studying. So there's a lot in this book about things like how we make decisions, some of the confirmation biases that our brain has, and also some of the stuff like, it's important to manage relationships and to manage social life and manage rest and relaxation alongside work. So I think there's a little concept in there called fun points. The idea is when you do, if you do an hour of organized study, self-directed on your own time, you get half a fun point. And for every one fun point, it basically equates to 1 hour of some kind of fun that you're going to have. So, 1 hour of watching House of Cards on Netflix would be one fun point. One meeting of a friend for coffee is probably an hour and a half, so that's 1.5 fun points, and so on and so forth. And the idea behind that is if you have, a month where you've got a dissertation due and you're really burning the midnight oil and you're doing a lot of hours, at the same time, you're stacking up these fun points. And then at the end of that month, you then have to spend them. So even if that sort of commitment to relaxation and rest doesn't happen on a daily basis or a weekly basis, at least you know that you're then going to take a week off further down the line. And it's not kind of you've lost that time or you're going to abandon your social life. So it was just a really little device to just get people to think about just those boundaries between work and life in some different ways.
I can see a lot of practical applications for doing that in a workplace as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And then the other one is focus. I'll show you the focus graphic because I really like that one.
Yeah.
So this is the fun I get to have is that when we do the new books, we get to commission new graphics. So this is the focus graphic. I mean, that's obviously a very similar sort of idea in many ways to stealth and camouflage, which is kind of getting off the grid, which I talked about in Productivity Ninja, and disconnecting from the internet and stuff. But I think there's also something to be said about just like clearing the space on a really practical level and saying, right, I'm actually just going to apply Ninja Focus right now. So even if you might still be switched on, I think there's something to be said for just using the proactive attention that I talk about, those sort of key 2 or 3 hours to really focus down. Often that main part of attention in the day, we waste it. We sit in meetings or we're flitting away on the internet and all that sort of thing. And to really kind of be disciplined to say, right, I need to apply that Ninja Focus particularly for those 2 or 3 hours every day. And I think students really resonated with that sort of idea of Ninja Balance and Ninja Focus too. I think they were very strong additions, and we did quite a lot of getting good feedback on that sort of stuff to be sure that they were the right kind of things that would resonate.
So how do you apply those two in your own work life, balance and focus? What's your best trick for that?
Okay, so let me take balance first. So I think balance is probably the thing that my wife would say I've struggled with the most for many years, but I think she would also say, if you asked her now, I'm getting much better. So Think Productive has sort of had a culture really of sort of operating, once people are established in the business, a 4-day working week. So for me, I do Mondays is my day with my son, and then all my work is condensed into Tuesday to Friday. So we do slightly longer days, but like that for me is a really great sort of grounding, if you like, in that I can't neglect him on a Monday. So there's no way that can bleed over into a fifth day. And that just really keeps me kind of sane and grounded and focused and stuff like that. And I think the other thing to say about balance, we talk about in the book, is what I've learned, particularly in the last couple of years, is that there's always a part of your life which is out of balance, and that's okay. So again, it's back to the sort of anti-perfection thing that I'm constantly banging on about. But like, I think balance can become an unhealthy thing as something to strive for if you beat yourself up if you're ever just even the minutest bit out of balance, right? So if you've got even one friend that you feel like you've neglected their text messages or something, then you start to feel guilty about that. And, I think you have to sort of take the whole thing, go like, generally, am I kind of in balance? And that's the question to ask, not is everything perfect, So I think that's what I've learned about balance over the years. And then big thing for me with focus is I split my days into two. So the first part of the day is usually spent working from home. And that's in my sort of language and on all my plans and stuff, I dub that create time. So that's the time when I'm writing, I'm recording videos, I'm doing the stuff that really sort of takes that focus and takes that proactive attention, which for me tends to be mornings these days. And then in the afternoon, it's collaborate time. So I don't really plan to actually do much work in the afternoon, if that makes sense. Like what I plan to do is help everyone else do theirs. It's about replying to emails, being in meetings, being on the phone to people, answering questions, all that sort of stuff. And, it sort of helps me to separate between those things to kind of keep that focused time in the morning.
Okay, thank you. Another thing in the book that really resonated with me is the whole concept of a DDD. Can you talk about DDD?
Yeah.
What's a DDD?
So you've heard of ADD and ADHD and all that stuff. So this is DDD. It's a sort of self-penned thing rather than a sort of sort of thing that comes from doctors and scientists. So it's purely my concept. But it's the idea of DDD is distant deadline deficiency. So if you think about having a deadline that's kind of a week out or a couple of weeks out, you've got a lot of work to do for it. Often we spend this time, sitting at our desks thinking about this deadline, but because the deadline isn't like the next day, we're not like motivated to start like straight away. And what happens then is we sort of chain ourselves mentally to the laptop or to the desk, and it's like, right, I know I need to be working on this. But if you took a step back and think about the reality is you're actually not working on it and you're spending your time feeling really tense. So what's going to happen if you do that for the rest of this week is you're only going to have 1 week left before your deadline, and you're going to be tired because you spent a whole week tense. So my thing is to kind of notice where, and in the book I use this phrase, where you're stuck in the middle with guilt. So when you're sat there just feeling guilty about something, if you can spring yourself out of that state and spring yourself out of that situation and just be kind to yourself and say, actually, I think I can handle this. I can do this work in 2 or 3 or 4 days, not in 2 weeks. So why don't I just stop beating myself up and actually rest right now? And what that will mean is when I come back in for those 2 or 3, 4 days, I'll be fresher and more ready and more able to tackle it. And I think I've got better at that sort of over the years, particularly like for me, that sort of manifests itself in the evenings. If I'm kind of sort of working late and I'm getting really tired, I'm really struggling with something difficult, I'm much better at much more quickly, rather than procrastinating around that, saying, look, I don't have the attention right now, get out of this, get back into it in the morning. And doing that on a regular basis, I think has kind of helped me with that. But yeah, it seems to be one of those things that's resonating with people. DDD, maybe I'll need to become a scientist or something so that I can kind of fully claim it. But yeah.
Well, and the cool thing is I think that people struggle with it, and as soon as you read about it and you are conscious about it, then you can fight it and you can deal with it.
Yeah, and I think that the thing for me was I thought it was only me that did this, and then I had the focus groups for the book, where basically I give the first draft to a load of people and get them to give me their feedback, and everyone just went, "Yeah, this DDD thing," And so when I was getting that feedback, it's like, "Oh, thank goodness." It's a bit of a nice sort of reassurance as well.
Yeah, but the first time, because I think the first time you wrote about it, you think, okay, this is only me.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was me and probably a few students, and then it turned out it's everybody.
Oh, I think it's also in the workplace. I mean,
Yeah.
this is how most organizations drive, because people are stuck in the middle. Okay, there's a lot of other things we could talk about the book, because there are some more acronyms in the book. I also really like the DUST and the TWERP and
Yeah, writing like a twerp, and the sexy model for writing.
Yeah, the sexy model. So if people want to read more about that, they should get into the book. So Graham, thank you very much for taking the time in your
Pleasure.
And talk about the book and talk about your work. I sure hope that the people who are looking at our interview and reading the article will really benefit from what they just have heard. Thank you again.
I hope so too. Thanks a lot, Fokker.